In today's tutorial, we're going to extend our inventory system by creating some item pickups that the player can collect in the world, cause them to update the inventory, and add usability to our items so that we can have things like this apple that heal your health. Hi, my name is Michael, and welcome to my 2D action and adventure RPG tutorial series. We are learning how to build a top-down 2D game that features action, adventure, and RPG mechanics all in Godot 4 using GDScript. Alright, so in order to be able to allow our player to pick up items, we're going to need to first start by modifying our inventory script. So let's go into the, if you've got your project open, go to the GUI, PauseMenu, inventory scripts, and find the inventory data resource. As you recall, when we set this up, we created a function called add item, but we didn't really do anything with it. And what this function needs to do is it needs to be able to accept an item and a quantity of that item that you want to add into your inventory. And then we're going to return actually a Boolean to determine if the player can pick it up. I'm going to go ahead and just add, I don't know, true maybe to start. And the reason we want it to return a Boolean is if our inventory is full, then we want it to return false, and then the script that's trying to pick up or notify the player that or the item that it needs to be picked up or whatever, right? It'll know like, oh, there wasn't room to be picked up. So we'll do that. And it also needs to be smart enough to know that if this item is already in the inventory, that we'll just stack it and we'll add to the quantity. So let's go ahead and actually, you know what? I think return false is good. I'm gonna make this return false. We'll only make it return true if it meets certain conditions. Otherwise, it's going to be false. So our add item function needs to accept two arguments, right, that we discussed. It needs an item, which is an item data, and it needs a count or a quantity. You could call it whatever you want. I'm going to just call it count. And by default, we'll make it equal 1. When we put this on here, that means that this is kind of like an optional argument in the function. And if we don't provide that, so if we call add item and we don't provide a count, then it'll just default to 1. So the first thing we're going to do once we get into this function is we're just going to go over all the slots. So for S in slots, we're going to iterate over the slots and we're just going to check it. And we have a couple things that happen here. So first off, sometimes we have empty slots and those are just null values. So first let's check if if S is not null. We can just say if S, right? So for each slot, check if there's a slot data there or not. If it's null, this is not going to happen. But if there's an item there, it'll check. So then let's check one more time. Okay, so there's something in the slot. Then let's check the item data and see if it equals the item we're passing in. Okay, so this is going to handle the situation where, let's say we pick up a potion and we already had 2 potions in our inventory. Then it's going to hit this line of code. So then we'll just take that slot and we'll just increase it by the count. Okay. So then, yeah, we'll just add to it. And then this was a successful pickup of the item, or it was successfully added to our inventory, I should say. So we'll return true. Now there's another condition that we want to account for. So it's possible, this is only going to check if the item already exists in our inventory. So if this doesn't happen, we still might be able to pick up the item or add it to the inventory, right? Because it might simply be that we don't have the item, but there are empty slots. So next, let's do this. We're going to do another loop through our slots. And, you know, this is one of those situations where I kind of wonder if this is the best way to do it, but this is how I did it. And something that I haven't actually talked about a whole lot, but traditionally I'm a graphic designer. And so getting into code was something I did a little bit, you know, as I developed an interest in it. And sometimes my solutions are different, but I still have the opinion if it works, you know, and there's no bugs, then it doesn't really matter. But we're going to iterate through our slots. So what this is saying is we're going to start at 0 and count up to however many slots there are. And, you know, if we look at our player inventory resource that we created, we have 10 slots. So this is going to loop 10 times, right? So in order to check a slot this way, we're just going to check the slot at the index of each loop. So if it's null, if a slot at one of these spots is null, that means it's empty. So then we can just add the item, right? So if the item wasn't already in our inventory, then we'll check and see if we have an empty slot. And if we do, we'll add it there. Now, because it's null, we can't just simply add the item, kind of like we did here. We can't just set the item data or anything like that, because we need to populate that with a real slot data. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create that slot data. We'll just call it new, and it's a slot data.new. So with our resources, we can just call this, and it'll create a new instance of that resource. And then we'll just say new.itemData equals item, and then new.quantity equals count, right? So we just assign the item and the quantity. And then what we have to do is we go slots I. So we're going to get our slots array and grab it at whatever index we're at, right? That was past this check, and we'll just add this new slot as the value there, and then we'll return true. That was another successful way to add something to our inventory. But if neither of these happen, it means our inventory was full, right? And it was full of items that don't match this one. So we're going to return false. Now, one thing I didn't do in here is I didn't put like a maximum quantity on items. We also didn't implement any code to make some items stackable and some not. I'm not going to address that in this tutorial. I don't plan to address that in the near future. So that's something, an exercise that you can work on. I mean, if that's something that's highly popular in the comments section, I'll consider doing that as well in the future. Let's go ahead and just print a message here for our testing purposes and just say inventory was full, so that if we hit this scenario, then we'll be good to go. But that's our add item function. Kind of long, but not too bad. Pretty straightforward, I think. Now that we've got a script that allows our inventory to have items added, we need to create something that can be picked up, right? I'm going to go down. Let's go down into our items folder. We've got scripts, sprites. Let's go ahead and create a new folder here, and I'll just call it item pickup, just to kind of keep this little bit of functionality separated a little bit and easy to find. Now inside here, let's create a new scene called item pickup. Okay, so we've got our item pickup scene, and let's go ahead and open that. It's empty, obviously. It's just a node 2D. Let's go ahead also in our item pickup folder and create a new script and just call it item pickup. Drop that guy on here, and let's open that up. Now our item pickup, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and make this a tool, because you'll see why in just a little bit here. We want it to be able to update as we add this into the world. And let's see, this extends a node 2D. Before we do much more with the script though, let's go back to our scene and let's add a few required nodes that we're going to need to make this work. So what we're going to do with this item pickup is we're going to build one generic item pickup scene that you can drop and just assign one of our item resources that we've created, and it'll just become one of those items, okay? So in order to do that, I'm going to add an area 2D. This area 2D's purpose is to detect if our player walks over the item so we can pick it up. And obviously an area 2D needs a collision shape. So let's go ahead and add a collision shape and just give it a circle, a new circle shape. And let's see, this circle shape, I think that's probably a good size. We'll see here when we start adding them, but 10 pixels, so it's about 20 pixels around or in diameter. Let's go ahead and in our item pickup scene, add a sprite 2D. And then let's add one more thing. Let's add an AudioStreamPlayer 2D, so that when we pick it up, we can play a sound effect. Let's go ahead and go back to our script. Obviously, we're going to want to grab all of these items here because we're going to manipulate all of them through our code. So we've got our area 2D, our sprite 2D, AudioStreamPlayer 2D, and we're going to want one export variable. Let's go up here and let's add this export variable called ItemData, where we can pass in that item data like I mentioned. And we're going to go ahead and just set this up. We're going to give this a setter function so that anytime the item data is set, man, you know, I do this all the time, kind of scatterbrained. Okay, set item data. We'll have it call a function called set item data. So let's go ahead and create that function now. Set item data is expecting a value of item of type item data. It's not going to return anything. And obviously when we get one, we just set the item data to the value. And then we'll do one other thing in here once we're ready. Okay, why am I getting an error here? Value not declared. No, it's because I spelled value differently or misspelled it. So there we go. We've got some basic stuff set up there. Let's go ahead also and add our ready function that we're going to need on this. Fun. Functions are fun. And let's see. Okay, here we go. So one thing that we're going to want to do is check if we're in the editor or if we're in the game, right? And we've done this once before, but so we go if in engine dot is editor hint, then we'll return. So then anything below this point is only going to happen when the game is running. And then if we need stuff to happen in the editor, we can put it above that point, right? So let's see, we're going to have that. We're going to, let's just go ahead and just add all of the functions that we're going to need and keep them empty for a second. And then we'll populate them as we go. So we need one function. I'm going to call it on body entered. And I'm going to just go ahead and put a B there, dash instead of equals, and then we'll just return on that. So this is going to be called anytime something enters the collision shape. We need a function called item picked up for when we pick up the item. And then let's see, we did set item data. We do want one additional function, and this function will be called update. Let's see, update texture. And this update texture we're actually going to go ahead and call it in a couple places real quick. Let's copy this. Whenever we set the item data, we'll call that so that we can look at the item data we passed in and just change the texture on our little item pickup. We also want to call the update texture right here in our ready function at the beginning. So anytime that a scene loads or whatever, even if it's in the editor, it's going to apply that texture because we didn't give a texture to our sprite 2D, and we could if we want to, but it's not going to be necessary with this since we made it a tool script. At least it won't be necessary if it has an item resource assigned, right? Which I'm not seeing that in the inspector yet. There we go, an item data resource. So now let's go through and let's flesh each of these functions out just a little bit. So first, our ready function needs one more thing. So we need to check whenever the player enters the area, right? So let's take our area 2D and connect. What am I doing? Not connect, body entered. I'm kind of typing it the Godot 3.0 way. Okay, so body entered dot connect. So we're going to connect to the body entered signal, and we'll just use this on body entered function that we've already created. Okay, so whenever something walks in, we'll come here. Let's go ahead and write this body entered function. We're going to check if the body is the player, check if we have an item data, because it is possible that we could insert one of these without item data, right? So if the body is a player and if we've got item data, then let's do this. We're going to call our PlayerManger and get our inventory data. Oh, do we not have that there yet? I think I need to add that. Let's go to our PlayerManger. So I skipped one thing here. So in our PlayerManger, we actually want a reference to our player inventory. And we've got that. I'm going to just call this inventory data. So we've added this inventory data reference to our InventoryUI script. So we have access to it there, but we haven't added it here. So let's just go ahead and preload that. You're going to have to find your player inventory resource. Just drag a reference to that in there. And I'm going to go ahead and give that a type of inventory data so that our script knows what it is. Now, this is convenient because since this is a resource that's referencing this file here, even though we're referencing it in our player and in our inventory scene, they're both referencing the same resource. So if one updates it, the other resource will see, or the other node will see that changed resource as well. Okay, so let's go back to our item pickup. We'll call our PlayerManger inventory data, and then we've got that add item function that we created. So we'll just say item data. Now the reason we did this as an if, because if you remember, if we can find that inventory data, the item data add item returns a Boolean. So actually we're going to check here to see if it's added or not. So if it does add, if it's true, then we'll call our item picked up function. And there we go. And if it's false, we won't pick up the item. Okay, so let's define what happens in this item pickup function. The first thing we'll want to do is get our area 2D, and we want to actually disconnect. I gotta spell things right and put a period. Okay, so let's say body entered, right? We've connected to this body entered signal, but once the item's been picked up, we don't want the player to be able to pick it up like a second time before it disappears or anything weird like that. So we'll just disconnect from that signal, right, on body entered. And then we're going to, let's take our AudioStreamPlayer and just call play. So we'll play. We haven't assigned a sound there, so let's go ahead and well, we'll do that in just a second. Okay, so AudioStreamPlayer.play. We'll set this visibility to false. Now we could queue free this right away and just get rid of it, but we want to play the audio and wait for the audio sound to finish, and then we'll delete the item from the game. That's why we're going to set it to visible, or set visible to false. So then let's go ahead here and let's say audio await. We're going to do an await. Make this an asynchronous kind of, man, you know, I'm just having a really hard time typing today. AudioStreamPlayer 2D. It knew what I wanted. We'll wait for this to emit the finished signal, meaning it was finished playing its sound, and then we can queue free. So that's what will happen when the item is picked up. And this will only get called if there was room in the player inventory to pick it up. Otherwise, the item is just going to stay on the ground. It's not going to, right? It's not going to do anything here. So let's see, we've got that. We have set item data. The last thing we need to account for in our script is to update the texture. We'll just do a check. Make sure we have item data and the sprite. We want to make sure we've got both of those objects. The sprite, did we name that? We don't want to just check for sprite. We want to check for sprite 2D. That's what we called it. Okay. So if both of those are valid, and then we can update it. I mean, I think you could do it without this check, but if you don't, there's going to be certain circumstances where you're going to get errors. It might not break during gameplay, but it also could give you headaches and lots of error outputs while you're working on the game. So we'll check for that. So we'll just take the sprite, get the texture, and set it equal to the item data texture. Save that. And then let's see, let's update, let's do the last thing we need to do is assign an audio to our AudioStreamPlayer 2D. And I don't have a sound effect yet to play. Let's see, item pickup. So what I want to do actually is, let's open this in File Manager. And then open your downloads folder. If you download this, I've got a sound effect you can use on the itch.io page, or you can use your own. And of course, that itch.io page is linked in the description. So here, let's see, I've got item pickup. Just drop that in the item pickup folder. Okay. Now that we've got that item pickup, we can just plop it onto the stream for our AudioStreamPlayer, and there we go. So let's go ahead and take this new item pickup that we've added, and let's open a scene. And I'm just going to open scene 1, and I'm just going to drag and drop one of these guys in here, I guess. So we've got an item pickup. This is kind of a moment of truth. Let's grab item data and let's pick one of these. Gem. Awesome. Okay, that worked. So hopefully it worked for you. You can see that because we updated the item data and our script had a set function to update the texture, that happened. So we can just take this item and duplicate it a couple times and move it around. And then we'll just change the resource on these. So let's see, let's make one of them be one of our potions. And let's make this other one use the stone. Awesome. Okay, we've got 3 items. Now, without even thinking through it, let's see if we've got it hooked up enough for it to work. So right now, if I hit escape, I've got some things set in my inventory, right? 30 of those, 2 of those, and 4 of those. Let's just go ahead and walk over these and see what happens. Nice. There we go. We got 1 additional item of each of those. We'll go ahead and close this. And let's just test this in one different way. What happened just there is we had one of each item in the inventory, so it just incremented the count of them. But let's actually go to our player inventory resource. And actually by default, right, when we start a new game, these are going to be empty. So I'm just going to clear each of these slots. Okay, so now when we run the game, our player shouldn't have anything in the inventory. Uh-oh. We have a little bug there. We'll fix that. Okay, so our player doesn't have anything in the inventory. Then when we walk around, picked up 1 stone, picked up a gem, and picked up a potion. So we've got the ability to update our inventory, and it plays a nice little sound effect. So that's pretty good. I mean, obviously we're not saving this inventory yet, but we'll get there. But for now, the fact that we can pick up items is awesome. In fact, because we added those to that scene, when we reload the scene, they'll be on the ground again. So I could just come here. Now I've got 2 potions, right? Okay. So that works. Pretty easy to use. Obviously, you could really take this item pickup scene and do a lot more with it if you want to by adding other effects. And personally, I love to do that. I call it game juice. I want to make them as fun to pick up as possible. You know, even the simplest action in the game. But for the sake of these tutorials, I want to focus on the core functionality so that you can just build upon it. And then maybe in the future, we'll do some fun polish on a few of these things. Now, in addition to simply having items, we also want some of the items to be usable, right? So in this current example right now, I've only got 3 items, a gem, a stone, and a potion. We can obviously make the potion usable so that it increases the player's health, right? And the question is how do we want to go about doing that? Because we built them in this resource system. And I mean, that's a little bit unusual, but actually what we can do is we can kind of continue to just dig into this resource way of building our items and make it a little bit more deep and a little bit more involved. Let's go into our items folder. I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to call this folder ItemEffects. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new resource type called an item effect, and it's going to be optional on our items. And our items are going to be able to, you can just take any of, let's say the gem, right? And you could give it an item effect. And so maybe we have like 2 types of potions and one heals more than the other. We can give them the same effect, but has a different value, things like that. And in fact, today, that's what we're going to build is an item effect to heal the player. But you could extend on this and make item effects that damage the player. You could make them that give the player invulnerability for a certain amount of time, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. Teleport them to another map, etc. Right? The list could go on and on. But the goal is to make it easily extensible so that we can add to these without having to like rebuild all of our code. So let's first create a new script in our item effects folder. We'll call it item effect. And let's open this up. I didn't do anything here, so let's give it a class name of item. Let's capitalize that I there. Item effect. And this is going to extend resource. And then I learned that for whatever reason, and I don't know exactly the reason why, but if we don't give a resource an export value, then it's not gonna really be a valid resource. And we don't really need this one. We're at it. You just bear with me for just a second, okay? So we're gonna add a use description string. I'm not gonna use it today. If you just have a use for it, you can. But basically, what we're gonna do is we're creating a resource type called item effect, and then we're gonna build new resource types based on item effect. And that sounds a little bit weird maybe if this is if like inheritance is a new concept to you, but just bear with me while we do this. So what an item effect is going to do, it's going to have a description and it's going to have a function called use. Okay. So all item effects will need a use function so that we can have confidence that we can call the use function and it'll do something, but what it will do will vary depending on the type of item effect, right? So hopefully you're following where I'm going with this. So a generic item effect use isn't necessarily going to do anything, and we're not going to assign item effect resources to any items. So let's do this. Let's create a new script and let's call it item effect heal. Okay, so this is going to be another resource. We'll give it a class name of item effect heal, right? And instead of extending resource, this is going to extend item effect. Now, the reason this is useful, we can't find item effect probably because we haven't saved or built the project. So give it a second. Hopefully that'll clear. The reason this is useful is because here, let's go ahead and flesh this out, and then I'll show you how it's useful. So let's say our heal item effect also needs to export some additional variables, right? So it's going to have all the parameters found in our ItemEffects script plus some additional ones. So it's going to have a heal amount, which will be, I guess, an integer value, which by default will be 1. And then let's go ahead and export a variable that we'll call sound. And it's an audio stream. And that way we can associate a sound effect that will be played when this item is used from the inventory. And then in our function, we're going to override the use function, and we're going to actually make it do something very specific for healing for the player. So we'll just call our PlayerManger and get a reference to our player and say update HP, right? Because we've got that update HP function we've built, pass in the heal amount, and that's going to just, heal the player a little bit. And then we need a way to play the sound because our resources can't play sounds. So let's just make a comment here to play sound, and we'll come back and get that in a second. Okay, so now how this is playing out is we've got an item effect heal that extends item effect. Let me go down. Let's go down to our ItemData script. So now that we've got this new type of functionality we're adding to our items, we're going to extend this class and make it more powerful. So I'm going to add an export category. We'll just call it item use effects. And then right in here, let's export a variable we'll call effects. And it's going to be an array of item effects. And we're only actually going to, I guess it's singular, huh? We're only going to put one effect in there, but the idea being that you could add multiple, right? If you wanted something that heals a player and gives them invulnerability at the same time, you could just give them both of those effects. So let's see here. I'm going to also add a function here called use, and it's going to return a Boolean. The reason being, if for some reason we can't use the item, we won't, but and what this function is going to do, we have to first check if we have any effects, because like we mentioned, like a gem, you're probably not going to be able to use it from your inventory. So we just simply won't assign it any effects, right? So if the size of our effects array is 0, then we'll return false. Okay, so that way if our inventory tries to use a gem, it's going to say you can't use it. But then if not, right, if it has use effects, then we'll go like this. We'll go for E in effects. We'll just loop over each of our effect resources that we have in there, and we'll call their use functions. And then we'll return true once this is all done. Okay, so now if we were to add, a heal effect as a sub item, then this is going to find that, and it's going to call the item effect heal, and the use is going to heal the player by whatever amount is assigned. Okay, and because we're only typing this array of type item effect, then any resource that extends item effect can be added. So it could be item effect heal, it could be item effect invulnerable, it could be item effect teleport. Any item effects you want to create, you can add them here. I mean, you could even have an item effect light player on fire. I mean, go wild with it and just, do fun stuff. So let's see, let's go ahead and save this. And let's open our potion resource. So now we can see we've got item use effects. And let's increase the size of this array to 1. And rather than create a resource that we're going to drag in here, we'll just do what we've kind of done in the past. We'll say new item effect heal. See how that shows up because it extends item effect. New item effect heal, heal amount 1, sound effect. We need a sound effect. So let's go in our item effects folder, open that in our file manager, and you can download the sound effect that we're going to use here from my HIO page again if you want that. And that sound effect is hp-up. Go ahead and bring that in here. And while we're here, actually, you see I've got an updated version of my items.png. So if you're following the older tutorials, your sprite only has the 4. Let's go ahead and get this newer version of the sprites here. And I've added a few additional sprites in there. Okay, so there we go. We've updated this. So let's go back. We've got our potion. Let's give it just this hp-up sound effect. There we go. So now whenever we use this item, it should heal for 1, and it should play that sound. Okay, so let's do that. Let's make these usable. First, I want to look at our heal effect, and we added a sound to it, and we're updating the player's health, but we're not playing the sound. And I thought about this for a while, and I decided probably the best way to play this sound is to use our pause menu and use our inventory. So let's go to our pause menu. And the reason why I think it's the easiest is because our pause menu is already an auto load script. So we've got access to it, right? So let's just add an AudioStreamPlayer. And we don't need an AudioStreamPlayer 2D, just a generic one will do here. Okay, 2D does positional sound in the world. And for the UI, that's really not important. So I'm just going to take this AudioStreamPlayer, increase the max polyphony to like 4, just so that if we play multiple sounds, they won't cut each other off instantly. Then here in our pause menu script, so open that if you need to, but we just need to get a reference to our AudioStreamPlayer. I'm going to put that at the top. So it's alphabetical, get a reference to that. Let me just copy that name so I don't have to type it. Let's create a new function here, because we can possibly use this in other places. Let's just do a function called play sound, right? And obviously this is going to require the sound or the audio stream that we want to play. I'm just going back and forth. Play sound, play audio. What should it be? What should it be? Let's keep it consistent with the actual terms used in Godot. So play audio. The audio that we pass in needs to be of type audio stream. Good thing it still found it even though I spelled it wrong. Okay, so this is actually pretty straightforward. We'll go to our AudioStreamPlayer and we need to set the stream, not stop, set the stream equal to the audio that we just are passing in, right? And then we can play it. Okay, so there we go. We've got a way to play audio now. So if we go back to our item effect heal, we'll call our pause menu and say play audio and pass in the sound. Yeah, but maybe we should change this to audio. So let's look at our inventory slot. I already had the inventory slot scene open, but you can just find one in your project. And okay, we're talking about this guy here, the button that shows the inventory items. So let's look at the script for this. We've got probably all the variables we need, but what we need to do now is check if the button ever gets pressed. And since it is extending of type button, we can just connect to the pressed signal that it already has. And we'll just create a function that we can call. We'll call item pressed. Let's go down to the bottom of our script here, and let's just create a new item pressed function. Now what this needs to do, it'll check if there's slot data, right? Because we've got empty buttons. And if there's a slot data, let's check if there's item data within that slot data, because that could be null. There should always be a slot data, I think, but anyways. Now let's do this. I'm going to make a new variable that's called was used. So we want to see if the item gets used or not, because remember, some of our items aren't usable. So let's do slot data dot item data dot use. Okay, so this is going to return a Boolean, right? So if we go back to our item data, use is going to return false if there are no effects, or it'll be true if there are after it calls the effects. So that's what's happening here, right? If it's usable, it's going to be true, and if not, that's going to be false. So then we'll just say if was used equals false, then we'll return. We're not going to do anything else. All that work for nothing. But if it does get used, then we need to do a couple things. And what we're going to do in the UI piece is we're just going to subtract from the quantity, because this is the, whoa, quad mesh, huh? We could subtract a quad mesh from that sucker. What am I doing? Slot data. Sometimes I get talking and I can't type and talk. Minus equals 1, because we're only going to use one at a time. And then we'll just update the label, which we've done that elsewhere. Slot data dot quantity. Usually if you're like doing the same line of code multiple times, which we are here, usually you want to create a function to do that, but we're only doing it twice and it's a single line, so whatever. you get better mileage if you're doing a lot of stuff repeated by making a new function, but we'll just leave that as is. But what we'll do is just update, right? We'll use the item, call the items use function. If we use it, then we'll subtract one from the quantity and update the label. So if this works, I'm trying to think if we've got everything hooked up. Let's go ahead and run it. So let's pick up a potion. Now, if we hit enter on the potion, okay, it went to 0, it went to -1, went to -2. That's pretty cool. We have like infinity potions now because we can go negatives, right? Let's go ahead and take some damage and let's see if that healing is actually working. There we go. We made it heal 1. You'll notice it only healed half a heart because of the way we built the health system in this project, right? But it's working. I didn't hear the sound effect. I don't think we've coded that piece yet. No, I think we have. Well, let's take a look at that. Let's see why we didn't hear the sound effect. Did I miss something totally obvious? Did we assign a sound effect to the potion? Let's check that. Ah, no audio on the potion. That's why. Okay. hp-up. I thought we did this. Let's make sure we save it. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, pick up a potion. There we go. Wow, that was loud. It was loud in my headphones anyways. Let me run one more time. There's one little thing I want to address here. Obviously, we were having issues with negative numbers, but I also want to fix that little text that was showing there. And what I mean by the negative numbers, right? If we picked up a potion and kept using it, it'll let us use it as many times as we want, which isn't the desired behavior. So let's first let's see if we can take care of that little label. So that's item description. Let's just go ahead and delete the placeholder text, and that should be good enough to fix that issue. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and close a bunch of these things again. Just clear my script window. We need to make it so that we can't just keep using potions, or like when it hits 0, the potion needs to disappear from our inventory. Let's start by looking at our slot data script. Okay, we're going to help resolve this by putting a setter function on our quantity. So we'll just call this set quantity. So our set quantity function, like a typical setter, is going to take in a value of type int, and then we'll set the quantity to the value, and then we'll do a check. So if quantity is less than 1, then we're going to do this. Emit changed. So what emit changed is this is a built-in signal. There's a changed signal on resources. And most built-in resources in Godot already do this, right? But we're creating our own, and so we need to handle it. It's really important to emit that a value that the resource is changed on critical changes. And this is a critical change, right? Because we just hit 0. So that means that we should actually no longer have any of this item in our inventory when it comes to the game world. So that's a pretty critical change. So we'll emit that it changed. And now we need to be able to handle that. So let's go to our inventory data script. We need to be able to we need to be listening to the changed signal of our slots now in our inventory resource, right? There is a way in our resource to do the equivalent of a ready function. But it's called init. So anytime a resource is loaded or initialized, it's going to call this. And we'll make a function called connect slots. Connect clots. Connect the clots. So there's a free game idea for anybody who needs one. It's kind of like a surgeon. Connect the clots. Yeah. Sounds gross. Okay, connect slots. Let's go ahead and build this function. So first thing we're going to do when this script loads is we're going to call this connect slots function. I imagine you have a good idea what we're going to do here. We're just going to loop over our slots. If we have an item in the slot, then we'll just connect to its changed signal. So yeah, changed right there, see? .connect. And then we need a function that we'll call when when a slot is changed. So we'll call that slot changed. And of course, it gives us an error because that function doesn't exist. So let's create it. Slot changed. Okay, there's a function for it. Now, obviously, like right now, our player inventory is empty. So this connect slots, probably not going to do a whole lot on init. We could go through, let's see. We could call that at the end of this. Yeah, anytime we add an item, we could connect it, but then we're going to be double connecting to items that were already added. So let's just do this. Whenever we add a new slot, we'll just go new.changed.connect. But we'll connect to slot changed. Okay. So anytime we add a new slot in, we'll connect it. And that should be good. That'll mean anytime we pick up an item, they'll connect that signal. Okay, so let's build our slot changed function. So every time a slot changes, we're going to have to, because obviously we're not getting very specific information out of this. We just know that a slot changed. But let's just go ahead and just update the whole inventory. That'll be kind of brute force, an easy way of doing it. So we'll just go over all of our slots for S in slots. If there is a slot, then let's check the quantity. So if s.quantity is less than 1, any slots that are empty, let's disconnect our signal, right? And then let's get the index of this slot. So the index of it in the array. So we'll just say slots.find. So the slots.find, the .find function on an array is just going to find a match to whatever you pass in and then return the index of it, right? So we'll get the index number of whatever that is. And then let's just grab our slots array at that index and set it equal to null. And then we're going to emit changed here too, actually. Okay. So let's see, that's pretty good, I think. I think we've probably got all the code we need here in our inventory data. So essentially we've connected slots, we're connecting slots anytime we add them, and anytime we hear that a slot changed, we're just going to run this function. And obviously a slot being changed, we're only emitting that when one of them reaches 0. So this isn't going to happen all the time, right? Just when we're using items mostly. But if slot changed runs, this is going to check and remove any that are 0. Yeah, let's go ahead and run that. I think that should work. We need to do a little bit more, I think, but let's just pick up potion and a gem. Oh, and the rock. Now if I use potion, it didn't update. Okay, hold on. So I skipped some steps, I think, mentally. What needs to handle that is the question. And the answer is our InventoryUI. So let's look at our grid container. It's got a script, right? InventoryUI. What we need to do is let's go ahead in here and just say data.changed, right? Because data. See, our data is our inventory data. Okay, so when we get that change signal, let's connect to it here in this script. And we'll make a function that we'll call onInventoryChanged. Our slot item UI is already updating the count, but it doesn't remove itself from the inventory. And obviously when we remove a piece of data from this, even though it seems like, oh yeah, we removed it from the inventory, we actually have this update and clear inventory functions that we call, right? So let's create our function for onInventoryChanged. And all this onInventoryChanged is going to do is it's just going to redraw the inventory. So we'll call clear inventory, and then we'll call update inventory. Now if we run it, okay, empty inventory. Let's go in here, let's pick up all these items. Ta-da! Okay, our potion's gone. Easy peasy. We did lose focus of the UI, so maybe we want to fix that. And let's go ahead and see if we can fix that real quick. Let's look at our grid container. Grab our inventory UI script. I'm kind of doing this by the seat of my pants, I guess, because this isn't something I thought about when I was preparing for this tutorial. So just a second. I guess we need to keep track. Let's do this. Okay, so we've got update inventory. We're adding our slots. We're grabbing focus of this first child. We kind of need a way to track it. So I think what we want to do is for each of our slots, we're going to add a slot, right? And our slot is actually one of these UI things. So I think we can go like this: new slot dot focus entered. Yeah, let's do that. And let's connect. And we're going to just say item focused. We'll make a new function. And let's go ahead and look at this focus entered signal. I don't know what it does. Emit when the node gains focus. Okay, that's it. It doesn't emit any information about it. And by the way, I got that by holding control and then left clicking on that. Okay, so our item focused. Let's iterate over all the children. for C in get children. Let's do it this way. We're going to do it by count because we want the index. Okay, so let's just say if get child at our index. Let's see, how do we check if it has focus in Godot? Not has focus. Yeah, I think it has focus. I just think it's a method instead of a property. Okay. If the child has focus, and then let's just keep track of which one has focus. So let's see. We'll just make a variable called focus index, and that'll be an integer, and it'll equal 0 by default. We'll just update the focus index, and then we'll just return. Okay, so every time we do that, I don't know why we can't do get children count. Oh, it's get child count. Okay, there we go. Okay, thanks for bearing with me. Okay, let's test this out. So let's think through this for a second. So we're going to check if which item is focused and set the index. Then what we can do here is after on inventory change happens, then we can grab focus, I think, of the child. So let's get child at focus index, and then we'll do grab focus. I'll be lucky if this works, I think. Let's go ahead and try it out though. Okay, so we'll grab one of these so that the potion's at the end. Oh, it didn't work. Okay. On inventory changed. Are we using this anywhere? Yeah, we are. Data.change.connect on inventory changed. Oh yeah, I think I know what's happening here, but let's just see if this, let's first make sure this is getting called. Okay, yep, I see it popped up there. So inventory changed did get called. This is what we're going to do. We're going to say var I equals, I think this is what's happening is I think update inventory. Well, it's interesting because our update inventory function is actually trying to grab focus of a child too. That did it. Okay. So what we did here is this concept was right, but we needed to wait for the next frame because I think we were just trying to do stuff too quick. The UI wasn't updated. Okay, so here we go. On inventory changed. We'll do this stuff, right? And then we store the index of the focused item because I'm pretty sure once we call all this stuff, this item focused, right? It's going to get hit again. We'll just wait for the next process frame. And actually, I think we could probably take that chunk out, paste it in here, and set I int equals 0. So by default, when we update inventory, when we call that, we're just calling this number here. Then when we do update inventory, pass in I don't know, just trying to clean up my code a little bit. Okay. There we go. That works. Now our inventory keeps its focus. And cool, we can use items. And when they hit 0, they get depleted. Okay, let's just do one more thing here. Let's create a new item resource, and this will be a good test of our system to see if it's working. So create a new resource, make sure it's of type ItemData, and then we'll give it a name. We'll call it Apple. Because if you grabbed my newer sprite, then you should have a texture for that. So let's give it a name, a delicious red apple. Let's give it an Atlas texture. Open that up. Drag that sucker on there. 32 by 32, and I think this is going to be 192 pixels. Got it. I remembered that with my giant brain. Okay, what else we got? Let's give the apple an effect. One effect. Heal type. Okay, heal amount 1, and that's good because that's, 1 is half a heart. That's appropriate for the apple. Let's just go ahead and find that health up, HP up sound. Go ahead and use that for the apple. Save. And then let's open our potion resource. And so I actually found a bug earlier. I accidentally increased, I meant to come in here for testing and increase the heal amount to 2 for the potion. And I increased the size to 2 and created an empty slot in here. And that created an error. So let me real quick show you what that error was before we test our apple. So let's see. Let's go to our scripts. In our use function here, so I'm on the item data. For each effect, you got to check if it's valid. So before it looked like this. For ItemEffects, e.use. So now we want to just check if e, because you might have an empty item in your array. Okay, so add that into your item data script. Go ahead and save that. Let's go to our scene. Oops, I closed the scene. Let me get level 1 open again. Okay, I'm going to just duplicate one of these items. And then, let's see, quick load, pick apple. Cool, it's got an apple there now. And let's run our project. So nothing in our inventory. So we've got some new item types. Now we've got a potion and an apple. And you see how powerful this resource-based inventory can be, because it's just super simple to add something and it just works with the existing systems. Let's go over here and let's test to make sure that our use effect settings are working as well. We'll just let this slime nearly kill me. And then let's try it out. So an apple should heal half of a heart. Perfect. A potion should heal a full heart. There we go. Well, thank you for following along. Had a couple rough spots in this tutorial, so hopefully there's no confusion out there. But I hope you learned something. I hope you guys appreciate and enjoy this one. Next time we'll be making a quick follow-up video to this one on how to save these items, so that when we save and load our game, it's actually going to save and load the inventory. If you're enjoying these, continue to subscribe and like my videos. And as always, thank you for watching.